one.
Basically, concerning parking, is there adequate parking in the development to allow people to have guests?
There's actually more than adequate parking. If you notice these driveways, some of them are fairly long, but they are not just a car length long. They are longer than that. In fact, I think this particular driveway, to give you a perspective, is about 50 feet long. So they've actually done a good job with providing parking where someone could have their own personal car in the driveway, and plus they could have a couple of guests. All of the driveways are 2 car widths wide. So unless you're having a bigger gathering, your company can fit in your own driveway, even if your vehicles are parked there.
Posted no parking on the street, is that?
We hadn't gotten that far. We were talking about that because they submitted their preliminary plat for the first phase, and we were talking about that today, and we really haven't come to a conclusion on that one.
Else with any questions? Comments? Do I have a motion of approval of the concept plan?
Concept plan, subject to staff's recommendations.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you for coming, Chris. And thank you for working to preserve those views. So we move on to item number 11 now. Oh, 10, I'm sorry. Discussion and public hearing to request to rezone a portion of parcel 59.06 tax map 152 located on the north side of Turkey Creek Road across from Anchor Park, 3.55 acres from rural-1 rural single-family residential district to R-4 attached single-family residential district. Smith Farm Residential Partners applicant.
This is the other half of what you just looked at. So in your packets is a copy of Resolution PC 1105 and Ordinance 1104. Resolution PC 1105 recommends approval of 1104, Ordinance 1104, and the rezoning to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We discussed this at our workshop session last time. By rezoning this portion, this was land they acquired after the fact, after they had initially done the plan work, but it does make it so that the road can be a double entry sided road, which is definitely much more efficient. Staff does recommend approval of Resolution PC 1105.
Questions or comments from the Planning Commission? Anyone in the audience? I have a motion.
Move for approval.
Second. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So we have all of this bundled together now. Thank you, Chris. Discussion number 11, or item number 11, discussion and public hearing of a request to amend the Farragut Municipal Code Title 9, Chapter 4 Sign Ordinance, Section 9-404 definition to change the definition of abandoned sign by increasing the time from 30 days to 90 days. Jeffrey Field, applicant.
In your packet, I included a copy of Resolution PC 1106, which recommends approval of Ordinance 1105 and the sign ordinance text amendment to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. As we talked about at our workshop session last month, this was discussed fairly extensively at the Visual Resources Review Board, and the initial request was just to allow certain styles of abandoned signs to remain in perpetuity. Getting rid of abandoned signs or having abandoned signs removed is one of the cornerstones of our sign ordinance, in that once signs have been abandoned, if our ordinances are changed, then new signs must comply with our requirements. Also, if there's abandoned signs in a center, it can give a negative look to the center, can have the feeling of abandonment, and can lower property values. The Visual Resources Review Board felt that a good compromise to the discussion that they had with the applicant was to increase the time for a sign to be considered abandoned from 30 days to 90 days to give greater time for folks to actually make a transition if they're getting a new tenant, to modify the sign or remove the whole cabinet or the whole structure. When we talked about this last month, the Planning Commission also agreed with this compromise, and staff recommends approval of Resolution PC 1106, which does recommend approval of Ordinance 1105 to the board.
Comments or questions from the applicant? Anyone on the Planning Commission have any questions? Have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 12, discussion, and this is for discussion only. We will not vote on this tonight. Discussion of request to amend Farragut zoning ordinance Chapter 3, Section 15, Regional Commercial District C-2 to allow motorized wakeboard cable system. David L. McFarland, applicant.
Bear with me while I...
First question, what is a motorized wakeboard?
I think she's about to show us.
Okay. When David came in to talk to me about this late Friday afternoon, one day, it was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. Motorized wakeboarding, okay. But I will just let you watch it, and you can see what it is, and then we can watch it a couple of times, and we may watch it more than once because David may want to give a kind of a running itinerary after you've had a chance to look at it for a while to see what it is. Unfortunately, the volume isn't working, and I really have no idea how to do that in here. So. But what this wakeboard system is rather than using a motorboat or a jet ski or something of that nature to pull a wakeboard across water, there are a series of cables across a pond, water body, lake, whatever, to pull the wakeboarder. There's a variety of advantages of this, as the wakeboarder gets a continuous ride without having to go, stop and let the, boat turn around or whatever, because the cable system can take them back and forth with a continuous ride. The other advantage is that you aren't having a motorized boat in the water with, fuel always goes into the water. So this is an actual cleaner alternative than a motorized, a gas-powered pulling system. Another thing that I read that can be good about this is when you're dealing with a pond, the wakeboarders churn up and oxygenate the water, so you get some good oxygen in the water. So there's always a variety of ways of looking at things. If you read the staff summary that's in the packet, normally when we're dealing with a text amendment, it is not site specific, but obviously since this is tied to water, there are certain things that there's not that many water bodies in the C2 district, and Dave has one at Wild Wings, and And so I included in the packet an aerial photo of the Wild Wing site so that you could see really where it was that he was primarily interested in this taking place. There are a few issues with that we have some concerns with regards to the wakeboard system, and that is, you saw the ladders and let's see here if I can get this to do it without, I'm afraid to transition it, but in your packets there was an aerial photograph, and you can see that the building overhangs the water. After we've looked at this again, I will show it on the overhead, but the building is actually overhanging the water, and staff has some concerns about patrons being so close to the system as it is operating. On the video you just saw, you can see that there really wasn't anybody near the cables, near the support system or anything like this, and just because of this location, that would not be the case. The patrons could be very close. The other issue is, if you notice, those are actual ladders as I described in the packet, but when you saw the video, you saw the ladders. They can be an attractive nuisance, and that particularly to customers who have been consuming alcohol. That's just something to take into consideration. And then the other issue is that the pond that we are talking about in this case is more of a square shaped versus a rectangular shaped. And in the information that was part of the website, they stated that the water bodies that this systems work well on is a range in size from 80 feet to 700 feet, so a pretty big range, in length, and 50 feet to 120 feet in width. This pond is actually 230 by 155, so it's a little wider than what is recommended. So those are just a couple of the concerns that staff had. To give you some background as to why, when we rewrote the C2 district and we specifically excluded motorized recreation, because it's not just a matter of noise carrying very well on clear nights to residential areas, but also if you're in an adjacent commercial development, hearing the noise of certain types of motorized recreational facilities can be bad for your business. So that was the primary reason for, at the time that the C2 district was rewritten, why the motorized was excluded. In this particular case, we are talking about an electric motor, so the noise is substantially less. And I will turn it over to Dave, and if you want me to play it again so you can give a running.
Yeah, I'm sure that this may be the first time that you guys have seen something like this. It's pretty cutting edge, and there are some in Orlando and Georgia and Cincinnati. You know, Knoxville, with all the lakes and the boat manufacturers, there's a huge community of wakeboard enthusiasts, and it's we've done an event not knowing that we were breaking any ordinance the last couple of years with a couple winches, and it's just it's been a great event for us. This is kind of the next level. This is just it's a very safe a way for people to learn how to do it that aren't as skilled. And you spoke about the noise. The noise on this motor is comparable to a hair dryer, so it's not very loud. As some of the other concerns you talked about, and I did bring, Ruth, I brought a letter from the Wake Park project, who we'll be getting the system from. They actually did, that's a concern of mine. There's an investment here. We want to make sure that we meet all the requirements. So they actually came and did a site evaluation, and they were very excited about the location. These systems, System 2.0s, are in several wake parks. I went to see one in Georgia. I went to a wake park in Orlando just to see